Blackbeard and Loki will race towards Fishman Island after the Elbaf arc to rescue Shirahoshi from Blackbeard, who wants to use her as one of the ancient weapons, leading to Loki's defeat and Blackbeard eating his devil fruit, completing his trio of devil fruits. And not only that, the final road poneglyph will be handed to him by the man marked by flames, and that man is Davy Jones. Yes, that's right. And if you don't believe me, there is a narrative reason why Oda has set up Loki and Blackbeard to be the inheritors of Rox's will. They are literally set up to meet and clash. And would you have a look at that? Both of their respective fathers, Harold and Rox, also clashed. This is almost undeniable at this point, because after the reveal of One Piece 1167, Mosa is revealed to be almost certainly Shirahoshi. There is no other way to put it. Mosa, Loki's transponder snail friend, has been revealed to be Shirahoshi. And the last thing that Mosa, aka Shirahoshi, said to Loki was, "It's okay, do not worry about me, and thank you for everything that you've done until now," with Loki saying, "Wait, is that place?" Meaning that Fishman Island is most likely under attack. Shirahoshi being one of the ancient weapons is not common knowledge, so the only way that Blackbeard will know this is because of Caribou. So if we put 2 and 2 together, the one attacking Fishman Island is Blackbeard, hence why Loki is going to go there to save his friend. Blackbeard getting the final road poneglyph is the perfect setup for Luffy to go back to Fishman Island, as he will have no other choice if he wants to become the Pirate King and fight for that final last road poneglyph. And that won't be the only reason, because after Blackbeard takes Loki's devil fruit, he will have emotional reasons to fight Blackbeard as well, setting them up to be the perfect final antagonist for the end of the series. Yes, that's right, whether you like it or not, we are going back to Fishman Island pretty soon. But before I get to the Loki and Blackbeard stuff, you are most likely wondering, how on earth is Davy Jones the man marked by flames? Well, first of all, what do we actually know about the man marked by flames? He rides an all black ship and he sinks other ships using whirlpools. And what do we know about Davy Jones? Davy Jones's locker. Whatever sinks to the ocean's floor ends up in Davy Jones's locker. I believe that the whirlpools and Davy Jones's locker are connected. They are coming from the same person. Now just really think about this for a second. How on earth would he be able to take the Fishman Island poneglyph without King Neptune even noticing? Not to mention taking that huge poneglyph from the ocean floor all the way up to the surface world without anyone spotting you. That doesn't add up. How were you even able to do that? And the proof that no one even saw him do this is that nobody knows who the guy is. No one knows who took the poneglyph. There's not a single trace left of it. There's no evidence. Maybe the poneglyph is stored inside Davy Jones's locker, hence why nobody could find it in the past. But now we know that in the current timeline, the road poneglyph is on that black ship. If this is Davy Jones and he is supposed to roam the sea floor, why is he now on a ship? Well, if you look at the end of the God Valley flashback, what do we see? We saw that the island sunk to the ocean, and with it, Rox Beck. What if Rox Beck is in Davy Jones's locker? In other words, Rox Beck could still be alive, not in a literal sense, but that Davy Jones's soul is inside Rox Beck, who is no longer alive. And as for the burn scar itself, that could have happened either on God Valley, although we never see this visually happen, or this could have happened during a fight with a pirate or a marine during the present timeline. For the man marked by flames to hand over Blackbeard the final road poneglyph, it was as if he was saving this all for him. He was waiting for Blackbeard, because Blackbeard has inherited Rox's will, and Rox inherited Davy's will, and Blackbeard inherited both of their wills. And if this is true, then Luffy will have no option to go back to Fishman Island, not only to protect Shirahoshi, but for a second reason, to get that final road poneglyph. Otherwise, how is he going to become the king of the pirates? Also, would you have a look at that? This would fit perfectly with the prophecy that Luffy will destroy Fishman Island. Luffy will destroy Fishman Island because this clash with Blackbeard will be so epic and legendary that it causes the island to be destroyed. Especially when you consider the fact that Blackbeard will have 3 devil fruits. However, I don't think Luffy will come out on top. He will lose, much like how he lost the first time against Kaido, Crocodile and Rob Lucci, building Blackbeard up to be the ultimate wall for Luffy to surpass during the final war. That's cool and all, but how is Loki supposed to be defeated? Like, why are you so convinced of that? And I won't blame you for thinking that, but I have a pretty good reason for it. Because if Loki does join the crew, then say goodbye to any stakes in the series. Not any stakes, but there'll be a lot less stakes in the series. Having two characters on the same crew with legendary devil fruits, nah, I don't see it happening at all. If Loki actually joins as a permanent member, the entire balance of the story would tilt overnight. And because Loki is too powerful to join the protagonist, that only leaves one narrative function for him. He becomes fuel for the antagonist. So here's what I think will happen after Elbaf. Mosa, aka Shirahoshi, will send a cry for help through the transponder snail to Loki. Loki will tell his new captain to head back to Fishman Island for a rescue mission, and this is a possibility since before Egghead, the Straw Hats wanted to travel backwards towards the Red Line to rescue Vivi from the world government. Luffy will agree since he has marked Fishman Island as his territory, and this is where Blackbeard and Loki will clash over Shirahoshi, ending in Blackbeard taking his legendary devil fruit and completing his trio of devil fruits, which is most likely a legendary Zoan fruit, since he already has the most powerful Logia fruit and one of the most powerful Paramecia fruits. This couldn't be any more of a more clearer setup for Blackbeard. However, although Blackbeard will gain the third devil fruit, he will fail in his mission to get Poseidon. Why? Because the world is going to flood, and we need Poseidon to command the Sea Kings to pull the Noah. The Noah is there to save people from the flood. Both Blackbeard and Luffy will lose and gain something. Blackbeard will gain the final road poneglyph from Davy Jones, aka the man marked by flames, and he will also get his third devil fruit from Loki. However, he will lose on getting Poseidon. On the other hand, Luffy will lose Loki, will lose the final road poneglyph, but will gain back Shirahoshi as she is needed to pull the Noah to save the world during the final war. So yes, in conclusion, whether you like it or not, we are going back to Fishman Island.
All the evidence that I provide today, let me give you 6 reasons why Blackbeard is actually coming to Elbaf to deal the final blow to Emu and claim the role of final villain. The first reason is that Blackbeard loves to take advantage of chaos. Right now, Emu is distracted in a high difficulty battle with Luffy and Loki, and with all the blood Loki has made Emu shed, and now Luffy making Emu bleed as well, it does seem like Emu is perhaps reaching his physical limit. Just like how Blackbeard jumped in at the last minute at Marineford to take Whitebeard's fruit when Whitebeard was at his limit, the very same could happen here with Blackbeard and Emu, effectively taking his fruit. Just like Marineford, this is also a war, the final war, so it would be a pretty good parallel, which naturally leads to reason number 2. Blackbeard right now is way too weak to be a final villain. Even if he has 2 of the strongest devil fruits, he has no Conqueror's Haki, never mind advanced Conqueror's Haki, which is needed to compete at the top of this level. He legit ran away from a washed up Rayleigh. He got scared from his own subordinate Kuzan. He ran from Akainu. He ran from Shanks. His best feats are literally beating Ace, fair enough. He beat a weakened Whitebeard. He beat Marco and he beat Law. That's it. He's way too weak to be a final villain. But if he eats Emu's fruit here in Elbaf, not only would he no longer need Haki, because he'd have Maki, but he'd claim his third devil fruit, completing his trio, making him essentially Emu himself. Blackbeard would become Emu. And a common opinion is that Blackbeard's crew seems way too weak, but if he eats Emu's fruit and he is able to give them Omen power-ups, that would literally solve this entire issue. Omen, baby! Reason number 3. Ever since Emu left the Holy Land, a popular theory is that Blackbeard will now invade the Holy Land to sit on that throne. But what is the point if Emu just comes back anyway, back to the Holy Land, defeats Blackbeard and reclaims the throne? Blackbeard can only permanently claim the throne if he defeats Emu by jumping him last minute here on Elbaf. This is the only way he can actually claim and permanently hold that throne. There's no point of sitting on it and Emu coming back and then defeating Blackbeard. Blackbeard can't beat Emu without any dirty tricks. And what better opportunity than now, whilst Emu is distracted and literally bleeding? This is his chance. Reason number 4. The Rock's flashback foreshadowing made it pretty obvious. Roxy the Beck once said to Emu, "I'll be back," but that never happened. Inherited will is a main theme of One Piece. It is clear to me that Blackbeard will fulfill this prophecy as he is the inheritor of Rox's will. Baby Blackbeard also saw what Emu did to his father Rox. This is what made Blackbeard desire to take down the world. The world, aka Emu, as Van Ogre said. Blackbeard has been getting a lot of attention, whether it's directly through God Valley or indirectly through Roxy the Beck. It's almost like Oda is saying Blackbeard has something to do with this Elbaf arc. And to me, it is pretty obvious. He will jump Emu at the last minute to avenge his dad. Alright, number 5. This is a bit of a hot take, but do you ever wonder why Oda wrote that Loki rejected Luffy's offer to join? What if he just joins Blackbeard instead? Just like Blackbeard, Loki looked up to Rox. Loki was upset over Rox's defeat at God Valley, just like Blackbeard. I know it's a stretch, but I can see Loki betraying Luffy and joining Blackbeard. Cause honestly, Loki is way too powerful to join the Straw Hats. But if he joins Blackbeard, maybe Zoro and Sanji have a much better final war opponent whilst Luffy fights Blackbeard. Blackbeard recruiting Loki would also solve his issue of his crew being way too weak. And do you really think Loki would turn down Blackbeard's offer when his pirate ship is literally called Saber of Zebek? Bro, he'd love to join Blackbeard. They are both Roxy the Beck fanboys. And reason number 6, the Blackbeard pirate crew are the most active crew. No other pirate crew is more active than this. In the New World alone, they have sent pirates to Dressrosa, Whole Cake Island, Amazon Lily, the Red Line, Egghead. They are literally everywhere. Why wouldn't they come to Elbaf? Especially when Blackbeard already has 5 other reasons to do so, which I just listed. With all of that said, it seemed pretty obvious to me that Emu has become more of a joke villain and that Blackbeard is definitely coming to Elbaf to claim that spot. But comment down below what you guys think.
Guys, Doflamingo is not joining Cross Guild, and it makes literally no sense for him to join Cross Guild either. One of the theories that never made sense to me ever within the One Piece fandom is the theory that Cross Guild will recruit Doflamingo. Why? Especially when these are the same people who think that Trafalgar Law will also join Cross Guild. Did we skip Dressrosa or something? This always felt like fan fiction to me. Don't get me wrong, I really like the concept of Doflamingo joining, but it's very out of character for Doflamingo, which I'll get to later on in this video. But I want to propose a much better and more likely scenario, and that is Doflamingo will actually join the Blackbeard pirates. And Oda has set up important plot points for this very scenario to actually happen, such as Blackbeard wanting to claim Law's Devil Fruit, whilst Doflamingo also wants to claim the same Devil Fruit. Or maybe how Doflamingo is now conveniently in Impel Down, and how Luffy and Van Ogre are the perfect plot devices for actually breaking into Impel Down, as we've already seen happen, and much more, which I will get into. I highly urge you to stay till the end of the video, because you may very well be on the Doflamingo and Blackbeard alliance train. On the agenda, join the agenda, my friend. This is the end of the Doflamingo joining Cross Guild era. We are ending this era right here and now. This is my era, okay? It's my era. Doflamingo is joining Blackbeard. I know what you're thinking, but King of Toast, why do you say it makes no sense for Doflamingo to join the Cross Guild? Isn't Cross Guild an assembly of the 7 warlords? I mean, we already have Mihawk, Buggy, Crocodile. Isn't Doflamingo the perfect next candidate? Yeah, maybe if this was some video game where you design your own custom team. No, these are characters with actual real motivations and history. Literally, the boss of Cross Guild, Crocodile, does not like Doflamingo, not even in the slightest. This was literally a major plot point during Marineford. Crocodile set out to Marineford so that he could get revenge on Whitebeard, but even his hatred for Whitebeard did not persuade him to team up with Doflamingo, who also wanted to take out Whitebeard. In fact, he refused his alliance at least three times. Then they got into an actual fight. And in fact, I could argue that Doflamingo joining Cross Guild would only make Doflamingo betray Crocodile, because we actually see Doflamingo beheading Crocodile. Because if Doflamingo did join Cross Guild, first of all, he'd want to be the boss, there's no doubt about that. He's a celestial dragon who sees himself above all others, referring to others as human as if it's an insult. the irony in that as well. And Doflamingo is a natural king. He is a king who rules over others. Doflamingo, even as a kid, had the 1 in a million quality of a king, which is why Treble and the others decided to serve him. Only thing he's ever actually known is to rule over others. Heck, he literally manipulated and orchestrated his rise to the throne on Dressrosa to be king. You think Crocodile will be okay with that? No, he wouldn't, because Crocodile is just like Doflamingo. He sees himself in Doflamingo. He knows that what he's dealing with is just a manipulator who always gets what he wants and pulls all the strings. Crocodile also refuses to be an underling to anyone else. He literally ran an entire crime organization from the shadows in Baroque works. Manipulated and he orchestrated his rise to a nation hero just like Doflamingo did. So yeah, that's why at Marineford it made total sense that their wills clashed like water and oil. They are never getting along. And if we're going to assume that Trafalgar Law will also join the Cross Guild, which I do think will happen, then Doflamingo will just kill Law. He'd kill Crocodile as well and become the boss. And Mihawk isn't exactly the moral police here, is he? Since he literally hunts down fleets like Don Krieg just for fun and because he's bored. Doflamingo will literally be the mastermind, literally and metaphorically pulling the strings, whilst Mihawk will act as the muscle of the group, as the only real Yonko level threat who defeated Shanks in a sword duel. But the truth is, Crocodile is the boss and he won't allow Doflamingo to join. Now this is where we get to the juicy stuff, what everybody has been waiting for, why Blackbeard is recruiting Doflamingo. So a big question within the One Piece fandom is, who is going to break Doflamingo out of Impel Down and how will they even do it, as it's not an easy feat. You have to get through the gates of bloody justice. But guess who's already done that? That's right, the Blackbeard pirates. And not only that, I believe Doflamingo and Blackbeard would actually get along pretty well. Surprisingly well. If Aokiji, one of the pillars of justice, teamed up with Blackbeard, then anything's possible. Okay, now let me cook. Both Doflamingo and Blackbeard, they both want Law's Devil Fruit to gain immortality. Both Doflamingo and Blackbeard hate the world government and want to actually bring them down. Doflamingo's Smile Factory was about creating artificial Devil Fruits, and Blackbeard likes to hunt down Devil Fruits. And with Caesar Clown being around still, Doflamingo can actually supply Blackbeard with artificial zones. So yes, they see eye to eye on many things. In fact, a breakdown step by step of why and how they will break Doflamingo out of Impel Down and the actual consequences of Doflamingo joining. So remember when I said that Lafitte and Van Ogre are the perfect plot devices to break Doflamingo out of Impel Down? Well, here goes step 1. Van Ogre uses the warp fruit to send himself and Lafitte into the control room for the gates of justice. Step 2. Just like he did during the Marineford arc, Lafitte will actually use hypnosis to make the guards open the gates. This is where Blackbeard and the rest of the crew have an opening. Step 3. Blackbeard uses his Earthquake Gura Gura no Mi fruit to destroy the Impel Down's front gates. Step 4. They'll make their way down by defeating the Impel Down guards and beasts. And this time they will definitely defeat Magellan, because with his Gura Gura no Mi plus Shiryu, there's no way that they'll lose. Which leads us to the final step. They make their way to level 6 where Doflamingo is, and Blackbeard offers a proposal. Blackbeard really has his way with words. I believe he will convince Doflamingo in the same manner that he was able to convince Aokiji of all people to join the crew, by telling him, look, all pirates on my crew serve their own selfish agendas. Being part of my crew is not about bootlicking. You are free to be as selfish as you want to be on my crew. Doflamingo could join a crew where he doesn't have to put Blackbeard on a pedestal. Doflamingo can still be himself, as he is only there to serve his own selfish agenda. We have seen Doflamingo in similar situations before, in fact worse situations for Doflamingo where he has less freedom, such as being part of the warlord system. Sure, he had freedom, but he was still working with the Marines. Now, there are no rules, he can do what he wants. And I know this is true because Aokiji could easily destroy Blackbeard, but he's still working on the same crew because he doesn't put Blackbeard on a pedestal. He doesn't have to. Being part of Blackbeard's crew is about serving yourself, not serving your captain. They don't care about Blackbeard. Only the OG4 care about Blackbeard, which I made a video on. You can watch it over here after this video. Also, Blackbeard can also see Doflamingo as the perfect bargaining chip. to demand the celestial dragons of anything they want, be it making Hachinosu a member nation of the world government, or other things like handing over the Seraphim and upgrading their crew. Because guess what? Doflamingo already blackmailed the world government before because he knows the secret treasure of the Holy Land. This is the ultimate blackmail tool Blackbeard and Doflamingo can use against the world government. Not to mention, if Trafalgar Law joins Cross Guild and Doflamingo joins the Blackbeard Pirates, then this is the perfect setup for Law and Doflamingo to have a rematch. Either Law gets revenge for Corazon, or Doflamingo kills Law, is about to claim the immortality fruit, but is then betrayed by Blackbeard at the last minute, killing Doflamingo in the process and making sure he himself gains immortality, making him on par with Emu, because Emu is the recipient of the immortality surgery as Ivankov suggested. This will make Blackbeard the ultimate final antagonist for Luffy to defeat. So, with everything in mind, do you still think Doflamingo is joining Cross Guild? Alright, let me ask you a question. What did we just recently find out during the Rocks flashback? Well, we found out that there is someone who is just as important as Joy Boy during the Void Century. Who do you fear the most, Joy Boy or Davy? They are portrayed as almost equals. It seems like you can't have Joy Boy without Davy D. Jones and vice versa. But who has inherited Joy Boy's will though? That's right, Monkey D. Luffy, who has the same devil fruit that Joy Boy had, which by the way is a mythical zone. But this is where things get really interesting. Who is Luffy's biggest rival and most definitely the final villain of One Piece? No, it's not Emu, it is most definitely Blackbeard. And whose will has Blackbeard inherited? The will of Davy D. Jones. And yeah, I said what I said, Emu is not the final villain. If you want to argue with me in the comments, because I will debate you till the ends of the earth. Anyway, now with everything that I just said, keep that in the back of your mind. Don't you feel like the ultimate payoff for everything that we learned in the Rocks flashback would be if, just like Luffy eating Joy Boy's fruit, to then actually contrast Luffy as his main pirate enemy, there is actually a Davy Jones mythical Zoan fruit, and Blackbeard eats this devil fruit and then awakens it, making us have a Joy Boy versus Davy Jones clash during the final war, but with Luffy and Blackbeard inheriting their fruit and their will. Just think about it, it makes perfect sense. Two sides of the will of D. We can assume that Joy Boy's side of the will of D represents the dawn, and Davy Jones' side of the will of D represents destruction perhaps. There has to be a reason why Emu and the 20 Kings wanted to overthrow Davy D. Jones in the first place. And when you take a look at the Davy clan, we have Roxy Beck, who wasn't exactly the most perfect guy, he was a bit rough around the edges, and then we have Blackbeard. We all know how evil Blackbeard is. So, when you look at things thematically, Blackbeard's third devil fruit, his mythical Zoan, will not be Loki's, it won't be Emu's, but it will be Davy D. Jones's mythical fruit. And he will awaken this fruit to fight Luffy in his own awakened form, to contrast Luffy fighting in his awakened form that represents Joy Boy. Two sides of the will of D, Joy Boy and Davy D. Jones. Unless you think Blackbeard is some big dragon, like what? Now I can understand Blackbeard thematically eating Emu's fruit since he represents darkness as well as Emu. But like I said, argue with me in the comments. But speaking of Emu, what if I told you that Emu is the one who created Blackbeard's Yami Yami no Mi devil fruit? One of the biggest unsolved mysteries is the origin of devil fruits and how they were exactly created, never mind the other several mysteries surrounding Blackbeard's devil fruit itself. But if devil fruits are in fact created from the dreams of others, just like Dr. Vegapunk suggested, then the big question is, who on earth would dream of a devil fruit that would take away other devil fruits, symbolically taking away their dream as their dream created those devil fruits? Because Blackbeard's devil fruit is a devil fruit that can nullify other devil fruit powers, effectively taking away those dreams. And when we think about dreams in One Piece, we often think about characters tied to the will of D, although yes, not always necessary. You don't always need the will of D to have a dream, but when it comes to the will of D, even the more morally grey characters who have the will of D are dreamers. Just look at Blackbeard and Roxy the Beck. And if If during the Void Century the Will of D were responsible for creating many of the devil fruits through their dreams, then as the natural enemies of God, that would put the celestial dragons at a disadvantage. Which naturally leaves us with one big uncomfortable question. What type of person or group would dream of taking away other people's dreams? Well, who are the natural enemies of the Will of D? Yes, those are the celestial dragons. In other words, the celestial dragons, in particular Emu, dreamt of taking away other devil fruits, since those devil fruits most likely put the 20 kings at a losing position during the Void Century War. And so Emu, through enough dreaming and will, the darkness fruit, a fruit capable of nullifying the dreams of others and the powers of others, came into existence. Now, I am not saying that Emu ate the darkness fruit or that Emu was the previous wielder of the devil fruit. No, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that Emu is the one who created it, whether he knows it or not. Because this idea of taking away dreams is the very thing that Emu is about. Emu is everything that Joy Boy and Luffy isn't. And Blackbeard's devil fruit symbolically represents all of Emu's values of taking away people's dreams. Luffy's dream, Joy Boy's dream, and would you have a look at that, Blackbeard's natural enemy is Luffy. And if Blackbeard has the fruit that Emu created and he's fighting against Luffy, it's almost as if Emu wants to take away the dream of Luffy or the abilities of Luffy through the darkness fruit. And what's even more horrifying are the very clear similarities between Emu's darkness powers and Blackbeard's black hole powers, which come from his devil fruit. It's almost as if they come from the very same being, Emu. And this is quite symbolic because if Blackbeard is the one who defeats Emu, that would effectively mean Emu was defeated by his own devil fruit that he created. He was defeated by his own dreams, his own wish. So when you tie together the Will of D, the dreamers of the Void Century, and the celestial dragons who feared those dreams, then the darkness fruit starts to look like a weapon born from desperation and fear. And if Emu really is the one who created Blackbeard's devil fruit, then the idea that Blackbeard could one day overthrow Emu using the power that he created is quite symbolic in its own. It's as the iconic saying goes, always be careful what you wish for. This is often something that goes over the heads of many people, but the reason why Emu is immortal is no secret. It was pretty much spelled out to us after the destruction of the Lucia Kingdom, where Ivankov theorizes that the only way for Emu to be immortal is to be the recipient of that fruit, the Ope Ope no Mi. Now pay attention because this is key. The only way for someone to know that the Ope Ope no Mi works and its abilities is for someone to be the recipient of that fruit. Otherwise, how would anyone know if the ability is true? This is basically Oda giving the reader a sneaky wink as to confirm what is being said. And to further back up my point, do you remember Dressrosa when Doflamingo said if only he had Law's devil fruit, he'd have the power to make full use of the secret treasure of the Holy Land, and that would make him rule the world. Coincidentally, the one ruling the world right now is Emu, who also coincidentally has one of the properties of the Ope Ope no Mi, the Eternal Youth Surgery. Oda couldn't be any more on the nose about this. This essentially means that not only does Emu have his own devil fruit, Emu also has the effect of another fruit gifted to him, the Eternal Youth Surgery, meaning that Emu wields the power of 2 devil fruits. Now ask yourself, who else has 2 devil fruits? That's right, Blackbeard. I believe one of the devil fruits Rox D. Zebek was looking for in order to take down Emu was the darkness fruit, as this nullifies all devil fruit powers, as we have seen Blackbeard do this with Ace, Luffy, Whitebeard and Boa Hancock. And so this essentially means that unlike the legends we see in this panel, Blackbeard will actually be able to land solid blows on Emu and actually do some damage, stopping his regeneration as long as Blackbeard gets in close range to actually grab hold of him, since his regeneration does come from his devil fruit. The darkness devil fruit is a natural counter to Emu's regeneration because it nullifies devil fruits, but that still doesn't solve the issue of immortality, as that is a completely separate matter from regeneration. Blackbeard may be able to land blows on Emu and negate his regeneration, but that's why the Ope Ope no Mi was referred to as the ultimate devil fruit, since it gives you immortality and you don't even have to suffer any of the drawbacks of having a devil fruit, such as drowning or being overpowered by Haki or Blackbeard's darkness logia, because you are only the recipient of that fruit, not the wielder of the fruit itself. This is why all of those legends using their Haki coated attacks did no damage to Emu, with Joy Boy being the exception. Perhaps he is on another level of Haki that is yet to be reached. The only one close to Joy Boy is Shanks, meaning Blackbeard, just like his father Rocks, will have to team up with someone to take down Emu. Now, let me ask you a question. Can you tell me the last time we heard that Blackbeard formed an alliance with someone? If you can't remember, it was during the Rocky Port incident, where Blackbeard, Kobe, and Law formed an unlikely alliance at Pirate Island, each with their own goals. Blackbeard wanted to get revenge on Ochoki for betraying Rocks and reclaiming Pirate Island as his rightful headquarters, as it was previously Rox's. Law wanted to hand in the hearts of 100 pirates to the Marines to become a warlord, and Kobe was there to save civilians. Oda could have easily written this without the alliance, so why write it that way? I think this is deliberate foreshadowing for the final war, as at least 2 of these characters are the key to taking down Emu, thanks to their alliance. Now let me ask you a question. Who is the current wielder of the Ope Ope no Mi? The man who previously formed an alliance with Blackbeard, Trafalgar Law. Have you ever wondered why Oda gave Law the devil fruit that would theoretically make somebody immortal if he is never actually going to use it on somebody else? Like, why does he have it? What is the point? So far, its only narrative payoff is that Emu was the one who got the Eternal Youth surgery 800 years ago. But what is the narrative reason for Law having the same fruit? I believe that the Ope Ope no Mi ties Law and Emu together. They are destined to meet up, and this is why Oda gave Law the ultimate devil fruit, as he is the ultimate solution to Emu's immortality eternal youth surgery. Now this is the $1 million question. Why was Law given the ultimate devil fruit? Maybe the same way you can gift somebody immortality through the eternal youth surgery. What if Law, now that he has awakened his devil fruit during the Onigashima raid, now has the ability to do eternal youth surgery reversal, meaning he can actually undo Emu's immortality. If a surgery can be performed, it can also be undone. This is why Oda had Blackbeard and Law team up together at Pirate Island, because it was foreshadowing for what was to come during the final war. Blackbeard and Law's devil fruits perfectly complement each other in terms of it being the natural counter to Emu's regeneration and immortality. Blackbeard will nullify Emu's regeneration, which is separate from his immortality, using his Logia devil fruit, which nullifies all devil fruits. Law will undo Emu's immortality eternal youth surgery using eternal youth surgery reversal, meaning that yes, Emu can actually be beaten. This solves everybody's existential crisis. However, I do think that Blackbeard will get the final blow on Emu eating his devil fruit. And no, I don't think Luffy will fight Emu as the final antagonist. Let me give you 4 reasons why Blackbeard is definitely going to be the final villain of One Piece. Well, the first reason is that Blackbeard has been set up and built up way longer than Emu has, like way longer. We first heard of Blackbeard during the Drum Island arc, whereas Emu was first introduced during the Reverie arc, meaning that Blackbeard has had much more focus and screen time than Emu. And the biggest event in One Piece so far, Marineford, was orchestrated by Blackbeard, which naturally leads me to reason number 2. Luffy versus Blackbeard is just way more personal. Blackbeard was responsible for Ace's death. He also scarred Shanks and is likely to defeat Shanks. He also has Garp held hostage and even captured Kobe and attacked Boa Hancock, and is most likely going to kidnap Shirahoshi as one of the ancient weapons. Not to mention, he will probably invade Wano for Pluton. All these people and locations all have a close emotional tie to Luffy, whereas Emu and Luffy have no personal connection. Luffy as of right now hasn't even met Emu, and when he does, it's still nowhere near the emotional setup Blackbeard versus Luffy has set up to be already. The only connection Emu and Luffy has is through Joy Boy, which that isn't even Luffy anyway, it's just a history connection. And whilst we're on the subject of personal emotional ties, that leads me to my third reason. The entire point of Blackbeard's character since his very introduction was to bring down Emu, to fulfill the promise of the Davy clan to succeed where Rocks, his father, had failed, to defeat Emu and to reclaim his rightful throne as king of the world. If Blackbeard fails in this mission, then how is he any different from Rocks? What was the entire point then? And the final and fourth reason is that One Piece is at the end of the day a pirate manga, and so the final showdown will be a fight between two pirates at the very top, Luffy and Blackbeard. The very fight that has been set up for way longer than Luffy versus Emu. Right, now that I've established why the final villain is most definitely going to be Blackbeard, allow me to tell you why he will be stronger than Joy Boy by the end of the series. First of all, can we all agree that as strong as Joy Boy was, and despite his haki making Emu freak out, at the end of the day, he still failed to defeat Emu. He still lost. The final result of the Void Century War implies that Emu was stronger than Joy Boy. Even when the legends of the old era, Rocks, Roger, Garp, Whitebeard, and then the Yonko 2, Kaido and Big Mom, all their attacks together did nothing to harm Emu. It's really not that hard to imagine that Emu is at least a step above Joy Boy. The point is, Joy Boy is meant to be surpassed. In order to bring the dawn of the world, somebody has to beat Emu, and whoever does beat Emu has to be stronger than the person who tried but failed before, that person being Joy Boy. I believe Luffy will surpass Joy Boy, but so will Blackbeard. Especially if Luffy and Blackbeard are going to fight on an equal playing field, they're going to have to be around the same level, don't you think? Now don't get me wrong, I am not suggesting that Blackbeard is a better brawler than Joy Boy or has better haki. I am not talking about who is individually stronger, but in the context of fighting Emu 1v1, I believe Blackbeard will surpass Joy Boy. And even though Blackbeard does not have Joy Boy's level of Conqueror's haki, maybe Blackbeard's Darkness Fruit actually makes up for that. Maybe that is the reason why he was so obsessed with it. Maybe that is the reason why it's the strongest devil fruit in the entire world. Maybe that's one of the two devil fruits that Roxy the Beck wanted to defeat Emu. To further back up that Blackbeard may not necessarily need Joy Boy level haki in order to defeat Emu, Shanks' Conqueror's haki was compared to Joy Boy's, right? Well, Blackbeard still scarred Shanks when Shanks was not, by the way, Shanks was not caught off guard. Shanks was a haki monster and he had future sight most likely, whilst Blackbeard at that point in time had no devil fruit. This legit gave Shanks like trauma. He was traumatized by this to the point where he went to Whitebeard to warn him of Ace going after Blackbeard. But the ultimate payoff for Blackbeard having two devil fruits, the strongest Paramecia, the strongest Logia, and most likely the strongest Zone fruit if he gets a third devil fruit, and the fact that he's going to fulfill the role of the Davy clan, is him defeating Emu, surpassing Joy Boy, and becoming the strongest character in the series for Luffy to defeat. And once Luffy does defeat Blackbeard, that's when he will become the king of the seas, the king of the pirates, and ultimately claim the One Piece. You are wrong about Blackbeard versus Shanks because it was not Blackbeard who scarred Shanks, it was Rocks D. Beck. Blackbeard has Davy Jones's locker. You really have to ask yourselves, how on earth did Blackbeard even manage to scar Shanks in the first place? That should be impossible. Have you ever thought about how insane of a feat it is for Blackbeard with no devil fruit to scar Shanks, haki monster Shanks, a Shanks who frequently dueled with Mihawk, clashes with Mihawk that will send ripples across the new world, with even Whitebeard mentioning their impact, a Shanks who was strong enough to be part of the Holy Knights. Do you remember Marineford? Blackbeard, despite having not only one devil fruit, the strongest Logia, a second devil fruit, one of the strongest Paramecias, when Shanks invites him to a fight, despite Blackbeard already beating him in the past with no devil fruit and no haki, we assume, Blackbeard then suddenly decides, nah, it's way too early for me to fight you, despite already beating, not beating Shanks, but scarring Shanks in the past without any devil fruit and no haki, and then bums out of the fight because he got what he wanted. The answer is simple. He did not fight Blackbeard, he fought Rocks D. Beck, or Davy Jones, thanks to Davy Jones's locker. And with the recent chapter of 1167 and taking the timeline into account, Shanks' confrontation with Blackbeard is exactly what led him going to the Holy Knight in the first place, for one secret undercover mission to get back the Nika fruit. There is absolutely no way that these two events are not linked together. The event of Shanks getting his scar and the event of Shanks going to the Holy Land. Why would Oda give Shanks a scar conveniently at the same time he goes to the Holy Land? Clearly these two events link to each other. Blackbeard does not know the location of the Nika fruit, but guess who does? Rocks D. Beck. In today's video, there are 3 long mysteries that I am going to solve. How did such a weak Blackbeard with no devil fruit scar haki monster future sight Shanks, who clashed with Mihawk several times. Why did Blackbeard cover Whitebeard in a black cloth before taking his devil fruit? And what exactly led Shanks to go to the Holy Knights? It is no coincidence that all three of those questions can be linked back to my original theory that Blackbeard has Davy Jones's locker storing multiple souls. The souls of Rox D. Zebek, Davy Jones, Eris, Whitebeard, how he is able to wield more than one devil fruit, and eventually 3 in the future. One fruit for each soul. Davy Jones's locker answers every single mystery regarding Blackbeard. That is right, every single mystery. You don't believe me? Too unbelievable? I'm not right in the head. Okay, just let me cook. Davy Jones as a concept definitely exists in One Piece. Matter of fact, Nico Robin spoke about the legend during the Long Ring Long Land arc. Well, that's a mouthful. Nico Robin spoke about how Davy Jones was cursed to roam the seas forever, trapping whatever sunk to the ocean floor into Davy Jones's locker. Do you really think that this is a throwaway line or throwaway concept from Oda? Especially considering the fact that we got introduced to the recent lore reveal that Davy D. Jones was the original king of the world. And not only that, Rox D. Zebek and Blackbeard, two of the most important characters in the series, is related to Davy Jones. This adds so much weight to Davy Jones's locker as a concept. And if Davy Jones has long since passed, what use does it have currently in the One Piece world? How can it be used if Davy D. Jones isn't with us anymore? And if Rox D. Zebek is not with us anymore either, that only leaves one person, Blackbeard. Blackbeard has Davy Jones's locker. There is evidence all over the manga for the fact that Blackbeard has Davy Jones's locker. Let's just go to Jaya for example. Yes, you guessed that right. You know what I am talking about. It's not him, it's them. The reason why this holds so much weight is because it comes from Luffy. It is already a pretty established fact that Luffy is an excellent reader character. By all means, Blackbeard gave a wonderful speech about dreams. A speech that Luffy completely would agree with. If this was anybody else, Luffy would be smiling, cheering, but no, he seems spooked out, as if he had seen a ghost. A soul, perhaps Rox's soul, Davy's soul. A man's dream never dies. Blackbeard is quite literally carrying on Rox's will. You are afraid that somebody will inherit Davy's will. It's almost as if Rox knew that Blackbeard would inherit Davy's will. And what adds even more weight to this idea is that Zoro said the same thing as Luffy. It's not him, it's them. Why? Because Zoro pretty early on unlocked observation haki. During Alabasta, he literally got observation haki. That's how he beat Mr. One. If we go with the idea that Blackbeard has Davy Jones's locker and therefore can store multiple souls, which leads him to eat multiple devil fruits, then theoretically it makes even more sense why Blackbeard is going around hunting more devil fruits, because he can eat more than just 2 or 3 or 4. He can eat multiple. Until otherwise established, Davy Jones's locker doesn't have a set limit. Or it does have a limit, but it's just a lot more higher than we think. Do you really think the bums on Blackbeard's crew are going to become relevant characters? Like, no, they are not. They are there as background fodder. Bums. The only ones who matter on Blackbeard's crew are the main people we see on Jaya and the people we see from Impel Down. Also, have you ever wondered why Blackbeard specifically waited so long to get one specific devil fruit, the Darkness Devil Fruit? If we go with the idea about Davy Jones's locker, perhaps Rox D. Zebek, one of the 2 devil fruits that he wanted, was most likely the Darkness Fruit, which now makes sense why Blackbeard wanted the Darkness Fruit. This also naturally leads into why did Blackbeard want Whitebeard's devil fruit? Well, if we look at Rox's point of view, Whitebeard was the strongest, second strongest on his crew. So if you want to take down Emu, you're going to need his devil fruit to some extent, especially if you want to use the ancient weapons. Get Pluton, you know, break down Wano's borders. Also, do you not find it a bit weird or suspicious that Blackbeard felt the need to cover Whitebeard in a black cloth before taking his devil fruit? Like, why did he need to do that? We have never seen anything like that in One Piece. Before he did that and ever since he did that, we have never seen anything like that. Why did he do that? Especially when we've seen Blackbeard hunt other devil fruit users for the devil fruit. He's never had the need to whip out a black cloth. do you get where I'm coming from? Blackbeard, or more specifically Oda, did not want us to see and the Marines to see him actually using, opening up whatever, however he does it, him actually using Davy Jones's locker to store Whitebeard's soul and attain his devil fruit. Don't you find it a bit weird? We don't actually see Blackbeard eating Whitebeard's devil fruit. No, he just, after he removes the black cloth, after he does that, he just has the ability, almost as if he took Whitebeard's soul. Like, come on, are you on my side yet? He has Davy Jones's locker. He has it. Especially with all this Davy Jones lore that we're getting. It has to be connected. Now we finally know why Blackbeard doesn't sleep. It's not that he doesn't sleep. It's just that when he does sleep, one of his stored souls, either it be Roxy Zabek, Davy D. Jones, Eris, Whitebeard, one of these souls takes over, making it appear like he never sleeps. And if we go all the way back to Dressrosa and we look at Cavendish, every time he slept, what happened? His other ego took over. Hakuba took over. Now that might just be a gag, but why would Oda establish in the first place that Blackbeard does not sleep? You could say, oh, he's just traumatized from God Valley, but if Blackbeard is just meant to be a human being, you know, he's not some special race, he's not anything like that, he's just a human being, that doesn't add up. The only thing that does add up is that he has multiple souls. And after the recent chapter of 1167, Shanks' scar is very, very closely related to why he's even on the Holy Land. His encounter with Blackbeard / Rock / Davy / Eris, whatever, his encounter with Blackbeard is what led him there. Now, what is Shanks' ultimate mission in life? To find and guide the next Joy Boy, fulfilling Roger's will. Who knows the location of the Elbaf Devil Fruit, which is most likely the Nika fruit? Why? Because the people of Elbaf, their entire culture is about Nika. So it only makes sense why they would guard the Nika fruit. And this also makes sense why the world government in 800 years hasn't found the Nika fruit. It's being guarded by the strongest race in One Piece. Back to the question, who knows the location of Elbaf's devil fruit? Roxy Zabek. So now to the ultimate long-awaited question, how did such a weak Blackbeard with no devil fruit, Scar, Haki Monster, Future Sight, Shanks, who dueled with Mihawk many times, Shanks who was strong enough to be one of the God's Knights, how did he do it? And then not only that, why did Blackbeard feel the need to run away from Shanks after getting two of the strongest devil fruits in One Piece? Blackbeard was able to get around Shanks' observation haki by manipulating his locker to switch souls at the right moment, being able to close in on Shanks and leave a permanent scar and a permanent reminder of the danger of Blackbeard's era. He most likely allowed the souls of Roxy Zabek and Davy Jones to carry him in the fight. After all, he was the underdog. Maybe this granted him access to some of their haki. This would also make sense why Blackbeard was somehow able to sense Luffy's haki back in Jaya, back when Blackbeard didn't even have haki. And isn't it a coincidence that this is the earliest mention of haki in the entire series, and it comes from Blackbeard, character who, let's face it, strongest asset is not haki, it's his devil fruits. Despite Shanks' amazing observation haki, Davy Jones's locker can most likely confuse anybody's observation haki due to them switching souls multiple times and due to the amount of souls that are actually stored in the locker. Just think about it, if you've got 10 souls stored in your locker, it's pretty hard to tell who is going to do what with your future sight. Perhaps you can look into the future of Blackbeard, but then by the time you do that, Blackbeard's already switched to Roxy Zabek. And then if Shanks looks into Roxy Zabek's future, Blackbeard can just switch to his own self again, his original self, and get around his observation haki, and then leave a scar. Like, when you really think about it, this is probably the most broken ability. And the reason why he ran away at Marineford is because this specific fight where he scarred Shanks was a 1v1. On Marineford, he had his whole crew with him. Shanks had his entire crew with him. So there's no way that they're gonna let that happen. Not to mention Blackbeard was already pretty fatigued with this fight with defeated Whitebeard. I don't even think Blackbeard is that strong physically. He's just a character with hacks. He has devil fruits and multiple souls. As bonus evidence, isn't it weird that Blackbeard has 3 skulls on his pirate flag? Almost as if he is saying, look at me, I've got 3 souls. So in conclusion, how did such a bum like Blackbeard scar such a monster like Shanks? It's simple. Shanks was not only fighting Blackbeard, he was fighting Rocksteady's Abet, Davy Jones, possibly Eris since she was a pirate as well. Blackbeard, using Davy Jones's locker, got around his observation haki, closed in on him and scarred him. He then revealed the location of the Nika fruit and then set foot on the Holy Land, leaving a permanent scar on Shanks and a permanent impression.
What if I told you that the Blackbeard pirates are actually celestial dragons? Yes, that's right. Now I know that might sound absolutely crazy, but bear with me here because this will all make sense in the end. Considering the events of God Valley, with Eris and Blackbeard most likely being sent to Sorbet Kingdom by Kuma, and then most likely going to the Lucia Kingdom where Eris said he'll meet Roxy the Beck. One of the biggest unsolved mysteries in One Piece is how did Blackbeard exactly meet his OG crew from that point, consisting of Lafitte, Van Ogre, Burgess and Doc Q. Like, how did he actually come across these people after being sent to Sorbet Kingdom or going to the Lucia Kingdom? We know how he got his level 6 crewmates, but why has Oda not shown us how he met his OG4? I actually have the answer to that question. I believe that Lafitte and Van Ogre are celestial dragons, fallen celestial dragons. And Oda has actually been saving this flashback for the final war when Blackbeard inevitably takes down Emu and becomes the king of the world. We know how Luffy met his OG4 in the East Blue. We know how Roger met Rayleigh. Heck, we know how Shanks first met Yasopp. But if you stay till the end of the video, you will see how Blackbeard met his OG4 as well. And you will be convinced of the fact that they are celestial dragons. Now think really hard about this question. Back in chapter 1107, this was a chapter Katarina Devon and Van Ogre both went on a mission to touch Saturn and gain access to his form, right? But have you ever stopped to wonder how on earth did Van Ogre and Katarina Devon even know about Saturn's existence? Emu and the Gorosei's existence is meant to be a top secret. Not even the typical NPC Marines know about the Gorosei. Most of the pirates don't know about the Gorosei, including big time pirates like Kid and Law. The Gorosei have only ever come down to the surface world twice, during the God Valley incident and during the Egghead incident. So how do they know about Saturn's existence? And do you know what's even crazier? Roxy the Beck referred to Emu as the world, and this is the exact same phrasing Van Ogre used when asked what the primary objective of the Blackbeard pirates were. And Emu has only come down to the surface world twice, during the God Valley incident and during Elbaf. How does Van Ogre even know about these people? How does he know about Emu? How does he know about the Gorosei? The only other pirate who knows about Emu is Doflamingo. And what is Doflamingo? An ex-celestial dragon? The only explanation of how Van Ogre knows about Emu and the Gorosei is if he himself is a celestial dragon. You might be thinking, okay, but that could just be a coincidence. Alright, so how about this? How on earth did Lafitte manage to infiltrate the Holy Land? And not only that, he knew exactly where to look for the Warlord meeting that was taking place without Emu and the Gorosei being able to detect his presence, almost as if he knew that he had to hide his presence from the hidden secret Emu and the Gorosei, almost as if he knew that these people existed and that he had to hide his presence from these people. Even Vice Admiral Suru acknowledged his existence. And not only that, he managed to go back to the surface world again, completely undetected by Emu and the Gorosei and the Holy Knights, almost as if he knows his way around the Holy Land like the back of his hand, as if he grew up there. And where did we last see Lafitte? Near the Red Line, reporting back to the crew about the revolutionaries. This clearly shows that Lafitte has a pretty close tie to the Holy Land in some way, shape or form. And if you're still not convinced that Lafitte is a celestial dragon, then what if I told you that Lafitte is also a parallel to Emu himself? Emu can use dummy reverses to get players on his side, as we are currently seeing in Elbaf, but Lafitte can also use hypnotism to get people
to do his bidding as well, like how he used hypnotism later at Marineford. Before the Blackbeard pirates sailed to Impel Down, Lafitte actually infiltrated the control room to hypnotize the marines present there. Also, have you ever wondered why the Blackbeard pirates are so cartoonishly evil? We know Blackbeard's reason is because of what happened at God Valley, but why Lafitte? What is Lafitte's reason? Lafitte is known as the Demon Sheriff. He is also a former West Blue policeman known for countless acts of police brutality, which resulted in him being exiled from that sea. Now, doesn't this sound like exactly like the Navy and the world government? Axe-Hand Morgan was also a Marine who abused his power, and he was known for his brutality, and he was eventually kicked out of the East Blue. Perhaps Lafitte was raised as a spoiled, entitled Celestial Dragon, and is cartoonishly evil because of this. And just like Doflamingo, he kept his evil Celestial Dragon attitude even after being kicked out of the Holy Land. And yeah, this might be a bit of a stretch, but just look at how fancy Lafitte always dresses, much more fancy than your typical pirate. It's almost as if this is how he always dressed, like a really rich and wealthy Celestial Dragon. Now this is the icing on the cake for me, because although the Blackbeard pirates are all in it for their own selfish agendas, mainly the level 6 prisoners, the same however cannot be said for Lafitte, Vanaga and Burgess, who are part of the OG4, as they are the only ones ever to show genuine loyalty to Blackbeard and Blackbeard's goal. Blackbeard's goal of overthrowing Emu and the world government, the very same way Doflamingo wishes to overthrow Emu and the world government. Because Lafitte is absurdly loyal to Blackbeard to the point where he threatened to kill Alvaro Pizarro for suggesting that he take over as captain, or feeling the need to remind Burgess to call Blackbeard Commodore or Admiral instead of Captain. But Burgess himself was very skeptical of Aokiji that he would betray the crew and by extension betray Blackbeard and his mission. And we have seen Burgess go on missions that are not selfish, that actually only benefit Blackbeard, like his mission on Dressrosa, tracking down the revolutionaries. And Vanaga wanting to go after the world is pretty self-explanatory when you consider Blackbeard's goal of becoming king of the world, which necessitates bringing down the world, showing that Vanaga is very loyal to Blackbeard's cause. But why are they so loyal to Blackbeard? Well, because all three have a common cause: to take down the Celestial Dragons. All three having a different reason. Blackbeard for what happened to his father and his mother, and just like Doflamingo, we can assume that Lafitte and Vanaga was kicked out of the Holy Land for different reasons. Probably because they believe in the true king of the world, David D. Jones, over Emu as the false king of the world. We know how much the Celestial Dragons hate the Davy clan, so I believe Lafitte and Vanaga actually really like the Davy clan and believe in the Davy clan over the Celestial Dragons. And this is why they called Blackbeard special, because he is the descendant of Davy D. Jones, the true king that Lafitte and Vanaga actually believe in, instead of Emu, which only makes this panel of Vanaga saying the world even more powerful. But do you know what else is really powerful? Lafitte himself, because I believe Lafitte is Sanji's final opponent and possibly Admiral level, and you will see why. Now, let me ask you a question. What is Sanji most known for, especially pre-timeskip? It was his undercover missions, like Mr. Prince, the undercover missions he did during Water 7 and his lobby. In other words, when it comes to stealth, Sanji is the stealth master. But is he really the only stealth master? What if there's someone better out there? And this is something you definitely overlooked, because I would argue that there is actually someone who has pulled off a way better stealth feat, in fact the best stealth feat in the entire series that far surpasses anything Sanji has ever done, and has only ever been topped by a top 5 strong character from the old era. Do you remember One Piece chapter 234? This is the most underrated feat in One Piece, I can't stress this enough. But Lafitte was somehow able to sneak into the Holy Land under the nose of Emu and the Gorosei and the Holy Knights, who were all endgame villains, right? And casually, without breaking a sweat, with Conqueror's level confidence, started recommending Blackbeard as Warlord in front of Yonko level Mihawk, Fleet Admiral Sengoku, Doflamingo, who took Gear 4th Luffy to finally beat, and Kuma, who could easily wipe out most characters in pre-timeskip. This goes to show the level of stealth all of the top tiers could not detect Lafitte. Now that is some insane feat, and guess who is the only character to ever surpass this feat? Rox D. Zebek, when he confronted Emu in the flower room. And yeah, you might argue, well, didn't Sabo do the same thing? But the difference there is, Sabo came with the rest of the revolutionaries, and Emu and the Gorosei were already busy with Cobra. But the difference is that Rox and Lafitte, they came alone and they were undetected. Just look at the amount of characters who tried to pull off the same feat but they failed. Fisher Tiger, he tried, he got caught and was freed by Shanks. Kuma tried and got confronted by Akainu. MF tried and got stopped by Saturn. So yeah, what Lafitte did here was insanely underrated. However, the stealth feats don't end there, because during Marineford, Lafitte infiltrated the control room to actually hypnotize the Marines present there. Without Lafitte, Blackbeard would have never gotten his level 6 crew members, he would have never gotten Whitebeard's Devil Fruit, and none of that is happening. Lafitte basically carried the crew there. What Lafitte did during Marineford is basically the Blackbeard version of Mr. Prince. And also, did you notice Mihawk's reaction? He looks confused, almost worried, speechless. This is Zoro's final opponent, Yonko level Mihawk, impressed by this underrated no-name character. Now let me ask you another question. What is Sanji's other specialty? That's right, speed. My favourite example of a Sanji speed feat is when he dodged Katakuri's jelly bean at the very last minute despite Katakuri using future sight. But if you look back to chapter 440, you will see that Lafitte also has a very overlooked but very impressive speed feat as well. And legit, Lafitte looks better than everyone else here, including his own captain. Lafitte is the only character quick enough to dodge Ace's attack, whilst Blackbeard and the rest are actually hit by the attack. But Sanji and Lafitte are not only similar in abilities, but they are also similar in personality, because they are both extremely loyal. Now, for a crew like the Blackbeard Pirates, where everyone is in it for their own selfish agendas, Lafitte is actually the odd one out of the crew, because he is overly loyal to Blackbeard, to the point where he actually threatened to kill Alvaro Pizarro for suggesting that he take over as captain, or feeling the need to remind Burgess to call Blackbeard Commodore or Admiral and not Captain. And Sanji's loyalty really needs no explanation. I mean, he was ready to sacrifice his entire life for Luffy during Thriller Bark, before the nothing happened moment with Zoro. So even in terms of their dynamic with their captains, Sanji and Lafitte are a one-to-one comparison. The same way Zoro and Sanji are Luffy's wings, Lafitte is portrayed as Blackbeard's incredibly loyal right-hand man. And no, Shiryu is not a right hand, since he is not loyal to Blackbeard the same way Zoro is loyal to Luffy. Shiryu is in it for himself. That is the point of the level 6 crewmates. Which now leads me to the final section of this video. Even if you put all of his feats aside, just in terms of narrative and portrayal, Lafitte is given special treatment among the Blackbeard crew. How? You may be wondering. Well, just consider this. We know Luffy fights Blackbeard, right? And Zoro fights Shiryu. But what makes Shiryu so special compared to the rest? Well, Shiryu was actually given a dedicated introduction. He was given build-up. He saved the Blackbeard pirates from Magellan during Impel Down, whilst the other level 6 crew members were not given the same level of introduction, making Shiryu a worthy Zoro opponent, especially since he is a swordsman. But guess who also gets a full dedicated introduction? That's right, Lafitte. During that moment, he pulled a Roxy the Beck moment and infiltrated the Holy Land. So if Zoro, the right wing, gets to fight the other really important dude, then it makes sense that Sanji, the left wing, gets to fight the other really important dude as well, who is Lafitte. On top of all of that, I actually challenge you to find me one panel, just one panel, where Lafitte has actually looked bad. Why am I asking this? Because every other Blackbeard pirate apart from Van Arga has at least once has actually looked bad. Even Yonko Blackbeard himself. Even in front of Admiral level Kuzan, right, he confidently suggests to Blackbeard about taking his Devil Fruit. And considering the reactions of characters like Mihawk during chapter 234 and being the only one to dodge Ace's attack out of the entire crew, being the only character to infiltrate the Holy Land without getting caught apart from Roxy the Beck himself, don't you get the impression that Lafitte's confidence in front of Kuzan, Admiral level Kuzan, is actually not a bluff, and that he would actually be just fine if they actually fought? I don't know, it does really seem that way. Lafitte was also quickly recognized by Vice Admiral Suru, showing that he has an insane reputation. This is the same Vice Admiral who would non-stop chase Doflamingo, the same way Smoker tried to capture Luffy non-stop. So all in all, Lafitte is really no joke. He has feats comparable to Rocksteady's Beck. He is capable of making Yonko and high-ranking New World characters freeze in sheer amazement and confusion. He's never made to look bad in the story, and is the only character in the crew to never take any damage. He behaves like Sanji with his stealth, he's insanely loyal like Sanji, and by overcoming Lafitte's insane stealth and speed, Sanji will be forced to unlock Advanced Observation Haki and unlock Future Sight in order to counter his speed and his stealth and finally defeat Lafitte. This is how Sanji becomes the complete wing to make Luffy the Pirate King and stop the other wing, Lafitte, from making Blackbeard the Pirate King. One of the biggest unsolved mysteries in One Piece is, what is Kuzan's real goal in joining Blackbeard? Is he staying with Blackbeard for the long run, or will he stab Blackbeard in the back? But what if I told you that there is pieces of evidence that you have definitely missed that prove that Kuzan is a double agent? Yes, not only do I think that Kuzan is a Straw Hat spy, but I also think he's a Shanks spy. And by the end of the video, you will definitely join the agenda, my agenda. This agenda train where Kuzan is a spy, a double spy. Let me give you one piece of genius foreshadowing laid out by Oda that you've definitely missed, that definitely hints that Kuzan being a Straw Hat spy is almost guaranteed. Because, did you catch it? The inverse has already happened. There was already a Blackbeard spy on the Straw Hat crew. Does that ring any bells? Yes, I'm talking about Caribou. From Fishman Island all the way to Egghead, Caribou acted as a Blackbeard double agent, gathering information on the ancient weapons for Blackbeard, meaning Blackbeard is definitely going to raid Fishman Island for Poseidon and he's going to raid Wano for Pluton, meaning that because of Caribou, Blackbeard now has the upper hand on the Straw Hat Pirates in terms of dominating the New World. Because of Caribou, the Blackbeard Pirates have now tipped the balancing scales and has won up to the Straw Hats. So what if this was a setup and foreshadowing of Kuzan doing the reverse of that? A Straw Hat spy within Blackbeard's crew this time, the complete opposite, gathering information on their plans and their goals to claim the ancient weapons that Caribou relayed to them. The information that Caribou worked so hard on gathering for Blackbeard will now get relayed back to the Straw Hats because of Kuzan. Essentially, a spy taking out another spy. I believe that the person he is sending all this information to is Nico Robin through the Denden Mushi, who he is now on very good terms with and has a long history with. Nico Robin and Kuzan, their storylines are interconnected. And I know what you're thinking, if that's the case, why hasn't Nico Robin mentioned anything about Kuzan? Well, Nico Robin is a woman who holds many secrets close to her chest. I mean, she still hasn't revealed what she learned with the Revolutionary Army. Why hasn't she told Luffy about meeting his literal dad, Dragon? Oda intentionally keeps Robin quiet about certain information. I mean, we still don't know everything that she's read on the poneglyphs. So picture this. If Kuzan is sending information to Robin that because of Caribou, Blackbeard now knows the location of Poseidon, Fishman Island, and is now heading towards there. Maybe this is where Luffy destroys Fishman Island, as was predicted by Madame Charlie, by intercepting Blackbeard because of Kuzan's information. And isn't that just convenient? The pieces are already in play because Sanji, this is his perfect time to rescue Pudding from Blackbeard if they clash at Fishman Island, knocking out two birds with one stone here. And if Mosa is Shirahoshi, then Loki finally gets to meet Shirahoshi or Mosa. So 3 birds with one? Wait, is that even the right saying? You know what I mean. Also, did you catch it? Blackbeard's mom, Eris, looks just like Nico Robin and Olvia, suggesting a fated connection between Blackbeard and Robin all this time. This may suggest that Eris actually betrayed Blackbeard, as crazy as that sounds. It's hard to believe that Blackbeard would get raised by a good-natured mother and still end up evil. Also, do you remember why Shanks visited Wano? Yes, it was because he feared Blackbeard might show up to take Pluton. But here's the real question. How on earth did he know that? Kuzan is most likely the answer. Even Burgess famously said, "I don't trust that Kuzan. I don't trust that Kuzan. And he said this even before the Wano arc. If I was to ask you what is Blackbeard's most defining trait in battle, it would be that he loves to attack people or groups when they are already weakened, such as what he did to Whitebeard. And Wano was in a similar position as Whitebeard himself. Literally the perfect opportunity for Blackbeard to attack. Kaido Big Bomb defeated, gone, done. Luffy and the Straw Hats tired and fatigued. The Scabbards tired and fatigued, meaning that the borders became more vulnerable to break and release Pluton. But then, conveniently enough, Shanks randomly shows up, suspecting Blackbeard's arrival. The only person who would leak this is Kuzan, and let me tell you why it would be Kuzan. Because Shanks acts as a bridge between the pirate world and the Celestial Dragon, the world government world. He was born and raised on a pirate ship, but then lived a few years in the Holy Land as a Holy Knight under Garling. So it is likely that Kuzan already has a good relationship with Shanks. Even the Marines respect Shanks. Look at how Sengoku spoke to him, literally Kuzan's boss at that time. Oh, because it's you, Shanks, we will allow it this time. And lastly, the final bit of evidence is this panel, because both Blackbeard and Kuzan are going after the One Piece. If Kuzan was truly loyal to Blackbeard, then Kuzan wouldn't need to be here as a separate candidate. It's not like Oda shows Zoro separately from Luffy or Ben Beckman separately from Shanks, but Kuzan, Oda intentionally isolates him here, almost as if Kuzan's goals are fundamentally separate from Blackbeard's goals. This singular panel feels like foreshadowing that Kuzan was never truly on Blackbeard's side to begin with. All of this together has led me to one conclusion. Kuzan is a Straw Hat and Shanks spy. So did I convince you to join the agenda? Either way, definitely leave your comments down below as to what you think Kuzan's real motivations are. Bro, we all know One Piece promotes freedom, the freedom of adventure, the freedom to chase your delusional dreams, the freedom of thought, the freedom of expression. So it is pretty easy for somebody to read One Piece which promotes freedom and be like, well, I guess I can do whatever I want then because that's my freedom, right? And that is exactly what Oda warned us about, the dark side of freedom, the freedom that Blackbeard embodies, nihilistic freedom. You see, most people, just like Blackbeard, misrepresent what true freedom actually is. Do you remember what Blackbeard said in Impel Down? He said that there is no such thing as right and wrong, and therefore he has the freedom to do whatever he wants. This is Blackbeard's freedom, and this is by far the most dangerous mindset, whilst at the same time the most advantageous mindset because it's dangerous. Because absolutely nothing of sentimental value is holding Blackbeard back, nothing tying him down. He has no loyalty, no morality. So for Blackbeard, there's no such thing as crossing the line. There's no such thing as going too far. And that's exactly what makes him the most terrifying character in One Piece.
Bruh.
Do you see how Oda, at the same time promoting freedom like it's the best thing in the world, also showing you why it's the most terrifying thing in the world at the same time? If killing Thatch gets him closer to his dream, he'll do it. If handing Ace over to the Marines benefits him, he'll do it. If manipulating his own crewmates benefits him, he'll do it. If betraying Whitebeard benefits him, he'll do it. Because in Blackbeard's mind, nothing matters at all. This is why Blackbeard's nihilistic freedom is so dangerous. When you convince yourself that right and wrong does not exist, suddenly every single action becomes justifiable. Blackbeard has reached the top of the pirate world by having zero attachments, allowing him to cheat his way up. If he even had an ounce of humanity, he would not even be a Yonko. He would not even be well known within the pirate world. It's his nihilism that's why he's successful. And the scariest thing is, this doesn't just apply to Blackbeard, it actually applies to real people. You know, the person who always uses others for their own personal gain, the person who believes that the ends always justify the means. And unfortunately, these are the people who are often the most celebrated. When you only care about your own desires, other people stop mattering, and that gives you a huge advantage in life. You can basically cheat your way to success. So why does Oda criticize Blackbeard's freedom by contrasting it with Luffy's freedom if Blackbeard's freedom is so advantageous?
Bruh.
Because although Blackbeard's freedom gives you a shortcut to the top, Luffy's freedom does something much different. It wins people. And in One Piece, the greatest power in the world has never been strength. It's the ability to bring people to your side, the ability to inspire loyalty from other people, the ability to make other people willingly believe in you and your dream. Blackbeard's freedom comes at a heavy price. Complete isolation. When your entire philosophy is built around using people, eventually you become surrounded by people who are willing to use you instead. Blackbeard's crew has been foreshadowed to betray him time and time again, and Blackbeard's crew are already using him in a sense because they have already admitted that they only joined because of opportunity, not because they actually support Blackbeard. They're only there for their selfish ambitions. The complete opposite of the Straw Hats, who put Luffy's goal of becoming Pirate King above their own dreams. The Straw Hats follow Luffy out of pure love, not out of their own selfish ambitions. Like, yes, Blackbeard's philosophy can work. You can climb the ladder faster, you can take shortcuts, but eventually, once you arrive at the top and you realize that you have nobody left to share it with, that's the tragedy of Blackbeard. He has the freedom to do anything, but he has nothing worth doing it for. His crew will eventually betray him, whilst Luffy's crew will only support Luffy and uplift him. Because Luffy's freedom inspires loyalty from other people, because he liberates them and encourages them to chase their dreams, instead of judging his crewmates based on how useful they are. And by the way, this is exactly why Blackbeard does not have Conqueror's Haki. He's a plain loser who cheats his way to the top, whilst Luffy does things the right way. He actually has principles and morals, despite being free. Being free is the freedom to choose your own responsibilities and morals, not outright abandoning them. And that's why I find Blackbeard's philosophy of nihilistic freedom so fascinating. Because of his nihilistic freedom, he lacks Conqueror's Haki, meaning he can't compete at the top with the likes of Luffy, who embodies true freedom. And I think that says a lot about what Oda thinks of Blackbeard's freedom. Don't be like Blackbeard, because you will have nothing in the end. Do things the right way, do things the honourable way, because even though it's slower, you will get to the top and you will stay at the top. So bro, don't become like Blackbeard. But what if I told you that you should become like Zoro? Check out this video out if you like this one. And massive thank you to my members, Cats A My Family, Uso Timo and Mr. Bushido 56. And I will see you there.